With the recent release of Modern Horizons 2, we've gotten a glimpse into just how bad things are going to be in the upcoming Crimson Vow Innistrad set.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, we are here today to talk about the upcoming Innistrad Crimson Vow expansion that will be releasing near the end of the year. Now, before we do that, I just want to do a friendly little reminder that Magic Historian sleeves are now fully available, and we've got a playmat that's coming soon too. So I will leave a link down below if you want to take a look at those and decide if you want some. So let us dive into the topic for today. As I said at the beginning of the video, Modern Horizons 2 has given us a view into just how bad things will be with the upcoming Crimson Vow Innistrad set. Now by that I mean how bad things are for the inhabitants of the world of Innistrad, not that the set itself is going to be a bad or poorly received set. There's no way of knowing that at this juncture. However, we did get two cards put in Modern Horizons that give us a view of how things are going both for vampire kind and humankind. Because understand, this is going to be our, third? I guess technically third and fourth visit to Innistrad, right? Because we're actually getting two sets for Innistrad at the end of the year. In a first for Magic the Gathering, we have a scenario where they're going to do a werewolf set and a vampire set, and they're both going to be full sets. The idea being that the way they normally release sets, whatever they released at the end of the year would have a longer period of time before we would get the next set coming along. And let's be very real about this, especially when it comes to those of us who spend our time going around on YouTube and Reddit and things like that. We're right into Magic and we want a constant flow of newness, right? We're not, the people watching YouTube videos and engaging with Magic on this level tend to be more enfranchised players who are like more, not your casual sort of, once every couple of months, maybe I'll go out and see what's going on with Magic. For some of us, it's like, give us the newness, give us the newness. So these kind of hints where you can figure out what's going on in the future, they're interesting, right? They give you a little bit of a portal into what we can see. We get to move into the future. Anyhow, since we've been to Innistrad a number of times, we have seen a change as things progressed through the storyline, right? Originally, we were just kind of dealing with the inhabitants of Innistrad as they were. The idea was that you have humanity and then you have non-humanity. So you have ancient evil spirits, you have werewolves rampaging around, and most frighteningly, you have vampires. Because to me, out of those three choices, vampires are the most terrifying, right? Although, depending on the power level of the Geists, they can be pretty intimidating as well. Werewolves are scary, don't get me wrong, but they don't feel as scary to me as vampires or super powerful specters. Werewolves seem like the easiest of the three threats to deal with, if I'm being real, right? So you have this situation where humankind is in dire danger because all these different forces, the triumvirate of destruction, the vampires, the werewolves, and the ghosts, they're all just laying waste to mankind, right? And Sorin, who is an ancient vampire planeswalker who's tied to the world of Innistrad, that's where he's originally from, right? He feels like the vampires are his kin because they are. They're all actually spawned from his bloodline because of his father. Basically, becoming a vampire was forced onto Sorin, but he's accepted it and he treats the vampires as if they are his family, but at the same time, he recognizes that humanity needs to be preserved in one way simply because they're the food stock of vampires, and if all humanity gets wiped out, then what really are the vampires going to do, right? Things are going to get really ugly for them, and it doesn't feel like Sorin's purely evil as well. So I think he helps to protect the humans simply because it feels like the right thing to do on a particular level, right? So you've got this scenario where in the first Innistrad, we have humans versus everybody else. And then in the second time we go to Innistrad, that's when Emrakul, one of the massive Cthulhian-style beasts, right? It's really, you know, the old Lovecraft Cthulhu monsters where it's just these unspeakable horrors that to see them even will unravel your mind. Well, Emrakul is the biggest and baddest of these Cthulhu-style horrors that exist in Magic the Gathering. And just the presence of Emrakul has this massive warping effect on the plane of Innistrad. So you have all these different beings becoming tentacled monsters and monstrosities because the Eldrazi warp the world to reflect what they are. They basically impose their own essence in a mutagenic sort of way on all of reality. It's pretty impressive. So what happens is you have vampires that are mutated. You have werewolves that are mutated. You have humans that are mutated. So now all of a sudden, it changes the dynamic. Now it's not humans versus the Triumvirate of Doom. Now it's humans and the Triumvirate of Doom are all kind of under the threat of Emrakul lurking above it all, causing all kinds of problems, and basically like creating an almost apocalyptic end of the world scenario. And that's actually where we come to this card right here, because this is from Eldritch Moon, and that is when Emrakul was exerting this insane influence over the plane of Innistrad, right? Now, Insatiable Gorgers isn't that strong a card. I mean, it's 2 red and 2 for a 5/3 Vampire Berserker, has to attack every turn. It's got Madness of 1 red and 3, so if you pitch the card, you can play it for pretty much the same casting cost. It costs 4 either way, it just doesn't require as much red. But the idea is that everything is going crazy. That's why you have the madness mechanic. The fact that they have to attack every turn is part of their madness and the flavor behind them, right? Insatiable means there is no way to bring them to satiety. And if you don't know what satiety means, it's like, I'm sated. I just had a great meal. You know what? If you're hungry and then you eat a bunch of food, you have sated your hunger. So if you're insatiable, that literally means your hunger cannot be sated. It can't be quenched. You will hunger forever. And then you have the concept of gorgers, which are people who just, you know what I mean? Where you just eat an insane amount. Picture a cartoon where somebody's got a big distended belly. That's the idea of gorging, right? So these are insatiable and gorging themselves in terms of vampires. The idea of a vampire berserker that's just been driven mad is pretty cool. You can see this as a whole horde of them, right? You see the 2 that are standing up. There's one in the front that is clawing forwards, but there's a bunch in the background too in this shadowy kind of setup. The flavor text helps to tie it all together saying, drink deeply, for there is no tomorrow. And that's Anji Falconwrath, right? So that's like one of the Falconwrath nobility saying this sort of thing. At this point, they've reached this apocalyptic state where they're being driven mad by Emrakul and what's going on in the world. So at this point, why wait? Why worry about preserving humans and trying to keep some kind of balance? The world's over. You may as well go to town and eat everybody. And I really like the way that this card encapsulates that concept as like a flavor idea. Again, it's really not a super powerful card, but it is an interesting lead-in to show what happens, right? If you gorge and go crazy like this, what happens? Well, now we have the card for Modern Horizons 2, which can give us a view into how things have gone, right? Because this is another variation of Gorger, albeit a far less noble-seeming type, right? So this is Vermin Gorger. 1 black and 1 for a 2/2 vampire. Tap it, sacrifice another creature. Each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. But the flavor text and the artwork are where it really comes together to give you an idea of the state of things on Innistrad. The flavor text says, once vampires ruled this world, commanding the fear and respect that befit our noble blood. Have we truly sunk so low? And that's a quote attributed to Soren Markov. And you have to understand that Soren Markov is an ancient planeswalker, and he's traveled to a whole bunch of different realms, right? Like, he's been alive for so long and been to so many places that at this point, he's basically just looking for anything that can thrill him, right? He just goes to different worlds looking for any kind of distraction because he's essentially had such an amazing life that he is bored of life. Do you know what I mean? Like the kind of people they portray in movies where somebody gets so rich They have access to like every pleasure in existence, so they have to like keep taking it up a level where it's like, now I have to like hunt human beings out in the woods or something just to get my kicks. Soren's on that level. He's seen it all. So he comes back to his world where the vampires are supposed to be ruling over everything, and they've sunken so low that this is the nobility. Take a look at the artwork, right? You see a noble who's sitting there in a very, very awesome ornate chair. I would love to have one of these chairs. These chairs that are so heavy that you need two people to carry them. They're carved out of like a single block of wood and the rich silk and everything. I dig that, right? That kind of a chair is really appealing to me. But anyways, this nobleman sitting there kind of contemplative with these candelabras in front all lit up or whatever. So it's not like the nobility is destitute in terms of possessions, right? They're still residing in a fine noble house, but what's changed is the food. You can see on the table there are piles and piles of rats, right? Like this is a vampire that gorges themselves on vermin. You can see them piled everywhere. There's a giant bowl of them in the back. There's a pile on one side all the way up to the plate. So the idea is now, yes, there's still that vampiric sort of greed to gorge themselves, but they're limited in capacity and have sunk down to the fact where they can only feast on rats. Now, what does this mean, right? What does it mean for the upcoming world of Innistrad? Does it mean that humanity has gotten to the point where there's so few of them that most vampires can't get humans to feed on? Does it mean that vampires have become so weakened that they're not actually able to go ahead and take on humans the same way anymore? The humans have become powerful enough that they can fend them off. Is there a battle going on between the werewolves and the vampires? Is that the scenario? What has caused this downfall of the vampires? Now, bear in mind as well, and I should have probably said this before, but I don't think I did. These Modern Horizon 2 cards may not be a clue as to what we're going to see for Innistrad. It feels that way, but it's also possible that this just happens to be artwork that was left over from previous Innistrad sets that they didn't use, and for Modern Horizons, they just pulled out some old art and said, okay, let's go ahead and put this in here and use it because we paid for the artwork. Let's get our money's worth. So it is possible that this is what's known as slush art. But we did get two different pieces of artwork that illustrate an Innistrad in a different state. So I figured it would be worth exploring even if it turns out this isn't what happens. So this is a possible future. Right now, let's take a look at the other two set of cards that help to illustrate the changes that have occurred. So these involve humans on Innistrad. So the first is Faithless Looting, which I thought was a really evocative concept as a card, right? A lot of people are familiar with Faithless Looting as an incredibly powerful card, and also a card that got some new artwork recently that had people going, But anyways, we're not here to focus on that, which is why I didn't put that artwork in the video. We're here to talk about this version of Faithless Looting. 1 mana sorcery, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. It's got flashback for a red and 2. And the flavor text says, Avacyn has abandoned us. We have nothing left except what we can take. Now, Avacyn was a protector angel that was created by Soren to maintain balance on the plane of Innistrad. But once we got to the scenario where Avacyn was missing in action, well, that's when humanity felt like they had been completely abandoned, right? Because all of a sudden, this beefy protector angel that stopped them from getting absolutely wrecked by the werewolves and vampires is gone. So the artwork here is actually showing people looting a church of Avacyn. So at this point, all hope is lost. It's literally grab whatever you can. This symbol of faith means nothing to us anymore. You can see the building has this like sort of arched domed temple with the crazy windows going up. So it's got that religious feel to it. You can see books are being burned, things are being smashed apart. People are literally just doing what it takes to survive in a hysterical, and I don't mean that in funny kind of way, I mean like literal hysteria, right? So they've lost their minds and they are smashing and looting just to get what they can. And I want you to take note of the 2 characters that are shown most prominently here. The one guy who's swinging back what looks like a massive spiked club, and the other guy who's leaning forwards, probably tossing more of the religious texts into the fire in dismay, because these two characters are actually going to show up in the other card we have, and that is Faithless Salvaging. You can see it's literally the same two people in the same place. So Faithless Salvaging is 1 red and 1 for an instant. Discard a card, then draw a card. So you'll notice that it's reversed. It's now not draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards. It's discard a card, then draw a card. So if you have nothing, you get nothing. And that's a different vibe altogether. And the flavor text says, all that's left are broken beliefs. And I like this because, honestly, there's a different energy to it, right? The previous one we looked at had this intense, dark, destructive energy. This one has more of a remorseful, contemplative energy, right? You can see individuals who look like the last two that we saw. They may not be, but they really do look the same. They're wearing the same gear. It looks like the guy's carrying the same club. Instead of having it swung back, though, it's laying down in inaction. You can see the roof has been smashed out of the building. Every window has been broken. So everything that really made it feel like a religious building is gone. And at this point, all you can do is go back to the smoldering wreckage of what once was and look for maybe something that would that would be like overlooked. When we totally destroyed that temple and burned everything to the ground and like took all the objects of value, is there anything left? Possibly, maybe. Like, these people at this point are so desperate that they're going back to completely looted areas on the off chance they might find anything that could help them. So it definitely gives that level of things have not gotten better, right? It's not like we're looking at a rebuilt church. The card's not called Faith Restored. This is a scenario where things have gotten worse on the world of Innistrad. So I'm definitely curious to see how things are going to go in that regard when the set does release at the end of the year. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you enjoy this as a concept? Do you think this is actually a window into the future? Or do you think they're just reusing, or not reusing, but finally using artwork they had previously commissioned? As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we've got the Owner of Fine Luxury Cardboard rectangle sleeves, so grab some if you so desire. Thanks for coming by, my friends. I will see you all next time. In the meantime, I will leave a link to my lore channel at the top of the screen, and I'll leave a link to my live stream channel at the bottom of the screen. Thanks for coming by. See you next time.